My favorite part about beekeeping used to be opening the hive and watching the bees do their thing inside. But nowadays, I actually love having bees on my property so that they are around and I see them day to day in the garden. And when I open the hive, that's something I don't enjoy as much because I know how intrusive it is and how they don't really want the beekeeper there bothering them. So in this video, I'm going to take you around to my garden and show you some of those really popular plants for my bees. Because I have read there are tons of plants that are good for bees, and there are tons of plants that produce nectar that honeybees go to. But there are some plants that I have literally brought out of my car, sat in the driveway for 2 minutes while I get my shovel or whatever, and there are bees on them. Every time I go to the plant, there's 2, 3 honeybees on them. And those are the plants that I want to plant when providing food for my bees. And of course, we want to provide food for the native pollinators. And there are so many different pollinators, not just honeybees. But right now I'm talking as a beekeeper and I want some food for my bees. Recently, like just a few weeks ago, went to a nursery and I said, do you have any plants for bees that are native, that are deer resistant, and my honeybees will go to? Not just attracts pollinators like you will see that generic tag on some plants. And the woman took me to a pretty decent good sized spot with tons of native plants and showed me which ones the bees go to. And this one by far was the winner. This here is mountain mint. This is native. This plant, the bees were going to in its pot within an hour of me bringing it home. This is a late nectar producer, which is great because that's usually a time of year when the bees are really searching for food, and a common time that people are feeding their bees. And my goal is to stop having to do so much for my bees. Right now, as I just moved to a different climate zone, my goal is to get my bees to survive this year, doing whatever I have to do, seeing where it's necessary to feed and giving them syrup if necessary. If they are having difficulty dealing with varroa mites, to put in a treatment to lower their mite levels. But my goal is to stop having to do these things so often to the point that I never have to do it. Now this spreads, which in my opinion is good because bees have this action called flower fidelity. Flower fidelity means that bees will go to the same flower on their trip and continue to forage for nectar from this flower until they move on to a different flower. And so when you have a big cluster of a flower, that is ideal for the bee because they can gather nectar from the same plant, as opposed to bees. Honeybees so much don't want to go to a garden and go to the squash and the mint and everything that they see in the garden. They want to have flower fidelity. So that's why in the long term, planting trees and planting bushes and shrubs. Oh look, there's a honeybee right there. Oh, and another one. I didn't even notice those guys on there. Planting things that produce a lot of flowers is best because that's when you're really going to attract pollinators. Now while I'm here, let's talk about some of the other things that I planted. This is my little pollinator garden. I have goldenrod. This goldenrod here, I stole from a place. I pulled it out of the ground and put it in a bag with some wet paper towels and then planted it. But you will see goldenrod in public parks on the side of the highway come August. We were just in Maine early August. It was all over the side of the highway. August 1st, we were driving through Maine, and it was all over the place, teeny little yellow flowers in these clusters, and fairly tall. You know, you're looking at like 3 feet tall. And here in Pennsylvania now, I'm starting to see it in mid-August. And so you will see them all on the sides of highways, and it's pretty common for goldenrod to just appear in your yard without having to do anything. I don't know what this variety is. It can spread rapidly, so you want to keep an eye on it. But I purchased some native goldenrod when I was at the plant shop. Now, this isn't deer resistant, but I have not found that the deer have cared at all about it. And this goldenrod, it's not looking incredibly happy, but there is a little wasp. It was 50% off because it was not flowering and not looking so hot, but I got it anyway because I was pretty sure the goldenrod was pretty hardy. It is a perennial, it's easy to grow, it attracts all different kinds of pollinators. It likes full sun, it will grow to be like 12 to 18 inches tall. This one's called Little Lemon, and it's a late summer, fall blooming plant. The goldenrod is a good source of nectar for bees in the late season. It does produce this dark, strong flavored honey that many people are not a big fan of. It is a really great nectar source for the bees to have that honey to get them through the winter. I just wanted to point out my prairie blazing star. This is also another native plant. They grow to be about 24 to 60 inches tall. They are a summer bloomer. They're native to central and eastern US. And the pollinators really love this thing. I wouldn't say that this is a honeybee magnet, but I see a ton of butterflies on this one. And since we have clay soil, this one tolerates clay soils. Okay, next we have borage. This is my number 2 go-to plant that I love to plant for the bees. Please don't be too harsh of a critic of my borage right now. It's not looking so hot. It was beautiful 2 months ago, but they are all dying off. I'm not quite sure if this is just the life cycle of the plant, but it's always what's happened with my borage. Anyway, borage produces a ton of flowers and the bees love them. When I first put the bees on this, we just bought this property in November. It's now August. Put the bees on the property in late April, and I didn't see bees anywhere on my property. There is a farm that is over 100 acres directly behind us, like right behind us, and it is full of clover. So I was assuming that they were just going to the clover, but a little disappointed that I planted all these flowers for them and I wasn't seeing them on any until I planted the borage. The borage seeds are really easy to grow. I put some in the ground directly, but I grew a lot in little seed starter containers and then put them in the ground, and they developed into these huge plants. They produce a ton of flowers, and the flowers replenish their nectar really fast. I read that it takes like about 4 minutes for it to replenish the nectar, and these things are always covered in bees. And it's really easy to also harvest the seeds from the borage. Once the flower has died and fallen off, inside there will be these little black seeds. And my daughter, who is 3, loves to gather them. And I like to just take the plant, put something under it, and give it a good shake, and a lot of the seeds fall out. So it grows fast, it flowers pretty early, it produces a ton of flowers, it attracts bees like crazy, and the nectar replenishes itself really quickly. So, a great plant overall. It's fairly drought resistant, tolerates a decent amount of soils. I grew this plant in Philly, I grew this plant here, and I grew this plant in Hawaii. When I grew it in Hawaii, it did the same thing, which is probably because it's in this very dry spot. We haven't gotten much rain in the last month. It would just, it attracted a lot of aphids, and There's a honeybee on it right now. And so I would plant it near my other plants. And the reason why I planted this in the first place is actually because I have raspberries and blackberries. And it's a great companion plant when growing vegetables. For almost all vegetables, it's a great companion plant to have. It attracted a lot of the aphids onto it, so it wasn't attacking my veggies. Right next to my borage are my blackberries and raspberries. Now these things I have mostly for the kids because they love berries. They grow fast, it's easy to pick, it's really fun for them. The bees do go to these flowers for nectar. I really noticed it, but there is a link to a PDF down in the video description by one of the beekeeping associations, and it has a bunch of different plants and trees, and if it's a major or minor source of honey in the United States. And the blackberries and raspberries, they say, are a major source of nectar. Can't forget about the clover. Clover honey is a pretty common honey. Now this is red clover, which bees don't really visit. However, bees do make honey from the white clover, as well as the Alsica clover. That clover is also known as Swedish clover and considerably taller. Looks similar to the white clover, but has a little bit of pinky purple in it as well. Now that clover is also highly poisonous to horses. My third favorite plant for bees is the sunflower. I mean, it just makes you smile. Sunflowers are native to North America. There's so many different varieties. The bees love this thing, and it is like a party. They look drunk when they are on the flowers. They are covered in pollen, and the sunflower, it's not just one flower. It's like a lot of these plants. There are like hundreds of little flowers on that head. The downside, it's a shame that a lot of sunflowers are sprayed, and of course in your own yard you really want to just let the weeds be in certain areas and use boiling hot water to pour on them in other places, or just pulling them, you know, if it's not dry season, maybe you're using like one of those torches. Do it safely, make sure you have water with you, but there are garden torches so that you can torch the weeds. I just pull them out and I let a lot of them go because I am not trying to be perfect or have a perfect looking garden or property. I just want to have some food for my bees. Because this is a native plant though, it actually is a great source of food for a lot of native pollinators. And you will see a variety of sized bees on the sunflower, not just honeybees, but even bumblebees and a lot of native bees. Here we have Cosmos, this huge plant with all these flowers. This is from one little seed. And this was just a little pollinator seed packet we got for my son. He's really into growing flowers right now. Cosmos does not produce, it's not visited by the bees, honeybees. I haven't really seen them go to the Cosmos, but I do see a lot of butterflies on them. They say that it does produce a ton of nectar, but it is mostly visited by the butterfly. Now I'm going to take you up to my veggie garden. Here's my son's. He made this all by himself, made his own little garden. Planted a pineapple crown and a whole bunch of seeds, and it's so much fun to teach kids about bees and pollinators through the garden, because I don't want to get my kids beekeeping suits just yet. I mean, I could. My son is 6, but I think it's a little bit more fun and for both him and myself if we just observe the bees when they're at all these flowers. Now come with me to my veggie garden. I have yet to put a gate up over deer net. So we crawl in underneath. If you haven't noticed yet, I am not a stickler for the perfect garden. I don't care about the weeds so much. I'm not trying to make things perfect, and I never considered myself good at all at gardening. It is something I have insisted on doing for the last 15 years-ish, off and on, when I have the property. But bees always, I don't know, once I figured it out, I really loved bees. And gardening is something that I have grown to love more and more as I learn how important it is for the bees. So I am not an expert at gardening whatsoever, but since I am not an expert, I think that it helps to know what's easy to grow as somebody that is not great at gardening. Squash is a great source of nectar and pollen for bees. They produce male and female flowers, but both of those flowers produce nectar. And when I go to the squash flowers in the early morning, I will see 2 to 3 honeybees inside these flowers. I also have some fennel behind me, which attracts the black swallowtail butterfly, lays its eggs on it. We had about 8 huge caterpillars crawling around the fennel. And they do eat a lot, but I also have parsley, which they also like to eat, so I gave them some of that too, so that they didn't completely take over, eat all of my fennel. And we have herbs, but I haven't really found that the herbs are an enormous source of food for the bees, unless you're like really planting a lot of it and letting it flower. The bees like the cucumber, but I'm not great at growing cucumber. And we have tomatoes and we have beans. I primarily will see bumblebees and carpenter bees at those flowers. Found some mums growing in the planters by the fire pit that must have been planted by one of the previous owners of the house. Mums do produce nectar, but they are not a great food source for bees. It's common for spiders to create webs in there that bees will get stuck in. And of all the late summer producing flowers, I wouldn't say that mums are the top of my list. And of course, you still want to be providing water for your bees. This bee is hanging out on a piece of moss. I found lots of moss by the deck stairs and all the shady spots of the yard. Put that in there for them. They love to land on it and slurp water from it. This is a new plant I just added in. It's called Russian sage, and I really love it. It is beautiful. It attracts all kinds of pollinators. It is not native, of course, but it is deer resistant. We also have some Mexican hyssop, and this has a very long bloom season. Late spring through summer. It's kind of on its way out the door, it appears. And it is not native, but deer resistant, and attracts quite a few pollinators, including hummingbirds, which really seem to love this plant. This is called bachelor's button or cornflower. I see the bees on this a lot, and the deer never want to eat it. It is considered invasive in the United States. It is on the invasive species list. Oh, and then we have my marigolds. This marigold is taller than my son, who comes up to my armpit. He is over 4 feet tall. These marigolds are gigantic. The flowers, some of them are small, but some of them are the size of my fist. And you know what? I didn't know there were different varieties of marigolds. A friend of mine in Hawaii sent me a jar of seeds, and I planted them, and all of these marigolds popped up. I love them. The carpenter bees love them. I see moths on them. I have seen a honeybee on one of these flowers maybe twice. Considering there are a lot of flowers and they've been flowering for a long time, that's not a lot. I have read that the honeybees do like marigolds, but they do not go to, marigolds that are this size. They go to the smaller ones. As I say that though, here's a honeybee proving me wrong. She is flying around. Maybe since these marigolds are a little bit smaller, she can get in there. Oh, here's a really cute video of a carpenter bee asleep on a marigold. My kids love gathering the seeds from the marigolds. Pretty easy to get once the flower is turned brown. Start to see seeds side. And here we have salvia. This is not native to eastern United States. However, it is deer resistant and it attracts quite a bit of pollinators. Even though I have just one, really, since this is my first year here, I'm planting a whole bunch of things to see what works, and then go all out in the next few years making large clusters. So that's why all of these plants I planted are kind of far away, because I want to leave space to be able to make big clusters of all these things. Here in the front yard, it's very hot, very dry. It gets hit by the sun like the majority of the day. So you really need some drought-tolerant plants here. Here we have my lavender. Got that from the bee sale. It was like 2 inches tall when they were selling it. So it's never flowered, but it is a perennial. So hopefully next year, if the bees do love the lavender flowers, I've been told, and it is pretty drought tolerant, which is nice. And for those of you in Hawaii and the warm climates, I also want to add in, if you have Brazilian pepper tree, also known as Christmas berry in Hawaii, that was the biggest food source for beekeepers, or is, on the Big Island. So that is highly invasive, but huge food source, as well as the mesquite tree, which is one of the most common trees, if not the most common tree in the world. It produces a delicious honey. In Hawaii, it is also called kiawe, but it is still the mesquite tree, and a huge food source. Not as big as the Christmas berry, and in Hawaii it would bloom in February and March, and bees would just go bonkers over it. So that is what I have to say about planting for honeybees. I hope this helps you as you provide natural food sources for your bees. Now, I know it takes 1 to 2 million flowers to produce enough nectar to make roughly a pound of honey. And so it can be, you can start to feel like you can't make a difference by planting. But I really believe that if everybody just planted a little bit, it would be better than what it is today. And making the world a little bit better, one day at a time, one summer at a time, is the best direction to go in. So find a space, whether it is a flower box outside your window, your church, your office, your kid's school, your yard, the little squares of grass in parking lots, sides of highways, and help spread food for these insects. Thanks for watching. See you next time.